Jack and Mel weigh in.
Good
What's
night.
up, guys? Welcome to the Super Rad MMA podcast. I am not your host, Forrest Griffin, but I am joined by your hosts, Mel and Brad. Did I get that right?
Jack,
Jack.
but close
Oh,
enough. You can call me whatever you want, Forrest.
yeah.
That's absolutely fine.
Sorry, Jack.
So,
We're all friends now, too. I'm blown to hear.
oh, absolutely delighted. So Forrest, you fought in Belfast in 2007.
Yes, fortunately.
Yeah, that's we're not far from Belfast. Did you enjoy our horrible weather?
It was it was nice when I went there.
I must have caught it on an off
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, I must have caught the good week, I guess.
Yeah.
How's retirement life treating you? Well, retirement from fighting.
Yeah. I mean, retiring from your sport you love sucks, but I work now more than I ever did. My poor wife thought I was retiring. She thought it'd be, spend more time at home, have some projects, whatever. Now I'm just working. And that's the thing about, MMA athletes, right? Most of us are going to retire into our second profession, into our second job, our next great passion, It's a funny thing being a professional athlete, right? Because you're on a clock and you don't know when it's going to end, but it is going to end. And most of us will not make enough to, see ourselves to 59 and a half retirement, whatever. So you have to figure out how to turn the skills and the relationships you learned into something you can monetize later in your life.
Well, you retired on arguably slightly on the younger side. Has there ever been a point that you've been tempted to come back? Obviously, probably not now. You're set up, but was there ever a time after you retired where you considered it?
Yeah. I was doing some foot drills, some rehab at a buddy of mine, physical therapist with some high school kids, and I was thinking, man, I might be all right. And then my knee popped again shortly after. So yeah, I don't. Let me put it this way: I did not plan on retiring. I thought I still had a whole second act. I thought, all right, I hit the bottom. Now I'm gonna climb back up and give it one more go. I thought I had another 2 or 3 years for sure.
You are one of the, well, I suppose quite a few people at this stage, but one of the luckiest men alive because you had the amazing job of being able to punch Tito Ortiz in the face many times.
I can only say I wish I'd done it much better.
What do you think the competition level's like now? Obviously, you've been around the sport for so long now, and you're working closely with the athletes. What have you seen now compared to?
There's an old boxing adage: talent goes where the money and popularity is. Right? MMA is a more popular sport than it was. I was a pretty good athlete for when I got into MMA, but the level of athleticism, the level of things that kids come in knowing, the years they spend training, not just wrestling or taekwondo or kickboxing or something, but a lot of them have spent years training mixed martial arts in its whole. So that's it's just a better level of competition. And this is the newest sport, right? So that's why the athletes will grow. They continue to get better. More people like Francis Ngannou will be exposed to the sport that never heard of it. You're seeing this with like a guy like Walt Williams, a guy that's, maybe, potential NBA or NFL guy that says, hey, you know what? I could be a mid-tier defensive end in the NFL, maybe get my 2-3 years in, retire out, or maybe I can be a UFC star, right?
Yeah.
So, do you feel that the competition level now is much higher than it was?
Yes.
So, if we had a time machine, we bring prime Forrest Griffin into the UFC light heavyweight division now. Where do you see yourself slotting in?
Not great. I'm older now, so I look at more as matchups, right? There's a couple guys I would match up with decently, but the overall market competition's gotten much higher.
You were an early adopter of leg kicks in MMA, and you, I think at one stage had a record for most leg kicks in a 3-round fight. Are you pleased to see them becoming more prevalent in the UFC because it seems to be heavier than ever?
It's the calf kick, right?
Yeah, it seems to have changed.
The calf kick is really, so a great thing about the calf kick is you think about your range. If I can kick you in the thigh, there's a good chance you can lean in and touch me with a punch, right?
Mm-hmm.
But kicking you in the calf, you're really, I've created that extra little space where you can't touch me with that punch. So it's a great, if you set it up correctly, it's relatively risk-free. And then the other thing is the foot jab, or people call it oblique kick. I don't know why, but it's just the knee stomp. I hate that one.
Yeah,
I hate that one. That's a rough one, man.
As someone with knee injuries,
keep your knees bent, guys. Don't ever stand flat-footed, straight-legged. You're in trouble.
The UFC obviously is in a weird spiral right now with the coronavirus, and they're scrambling to put a card together, and there seems to be a big.
The UFC, I would say it's the world of sport.
True. But the UFC in particular seem to be the ones who are not letting it go at the moment, because there's obviously a cry out for sport.
The UFC, think about it, they have an advantage, right? It only takes really 2 people, third, a ref. Everybody else can do their job virtually or remotely, right?
Yeah.
You don't technically have to have judges there, right? You
Right.
could have judges in a third place or removed, watching it on film. How many of us feel like we can judge the fights and know more than the judges that watched it live? And, maybe they were influenced by the crowd, or they looked away at the wrong moment or something. Or I was watching it on my TV and I had the best angle. So, maybe there's something to that. I don't know if the commission would go for that, but you can really, if you kind of dissect it and deconstruct it, you can take a lot away. Think about your first fights. You would have gotten in a fight. It would just been you and somebody else. There was no crowd initially. A crowd probably came when they saw 2 people fighting, if it lasts for any length of time. But for the most part, you'd only need 2 people and then a ref to make sure, that's really it.
No one gets killed.
Yeah.
So you were obviously on The Ultimate Fighter as well as coached it.
Yeah.
Which was more fun?
I don't know. They were both kind of fun and they were both kind of hard. They both had a lot of value, I'll say, more than fun. They were both very valuable experiences. And having to coach that first Ultimate Fighter I coached made me a better coach, cornerman, than, I wasn't looking to do that at the time. I was, holistically concerned with myself and improving myself as a fighter. And that made me kind of take a step back and really made me a better training partner and, coach. And I was very thankful for it after having done it. But in the midst of it, you're thinking, man, I just want to fight, or just do this, or why didn't they do that? It becomes actually, difficult, I'd say, in that moment to do.
I think Mel and I had actually spoken off air, and Mel, you'd said about Forrest coaching.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I know you've got the role at the Performance Institute, but I was just wondering if you had any interest in sort of a more traditional MMA, like head coach role, looking at maybe your own gym or own team down the line?
No. So I've kind of done that a little bit. I've assisted in that. That's a tough life, man. And you think about my friends now that do that. I have a lot of friends that do that now. They, it's not something they can do virtually, right? You can't hold pads virtually. You can't, I saw Rafael Cordero having some students spar, and he was, watching it on film, giving them notes. But, there's only so much of that you can do in the day, right?
Yeah.
Where, when you're coaching, you coach 20 people. And it's just, it's a tough way to make your living. It really is. You got to travel. You leave, you go out with your fighter maybe Wednesday, and you leave the rest of your team, and you got to, there's a lot of lost weekends. And the thing, my least favorite thing about coaching and cornering was the sitting and the waiting. Waiting is the worst of it, because you got to get there like 2:00. You're just sitting there, riding in a van, waiting on your guy to do some media, to do this, to do that. It's just, honestly, it's just mind-numbingly boring.
Well, one thing that we always ask any of the fighters that we have on, Mel and I both took part in a novice MMA fights, purely because when we had the podcast, we didn't want to be two guys who had zero insight into, you know, the workings of what it's actually like to fight.
Now you guys have the 1% insight, you know, like
100%.
If the,
So one of the things that I found particularly difficult, particularly for my second fight, was the mindset. No. The weight cut was actually okay for me, but Mel here, he has to cut to make heavyweight, so he's a big boy. I'm your division. I'm light heavyweight. But it was just a quick question in regards to mindset and how you were able to, throughout your career, continue that. You know, you obviously can't go into a fight feeling like you're not going to win. Yeah. How did you manage to balance that mindset?
And that's actually something that I'm trying to read a lot, learn about right now. So, you know, some people need kind of that space. Some people don't. I put it like this. At the end of the day, you want to go in there. You want to know two things. Did I do everything I could in my power to win the fight? And do I deep down, I will not quit on myself in there? That's all you really have to know, right? Again, it's like the Lord's Prayer or whatever. You can only control what's in your control, and you can't stress too much about the rest. There's all kinds of things you can do, be it breathing, be it, you know, focus drills. You know, you got to stay in the moment on the task at hand, right? There's so much good literature that I've been reading recently that comes to mind. I'll put it like this. Here's what you want to do. You want to start your camp, and you want to watch your opponent, you know, kind of, hey, you should be a little afraid of him. 8 weeks out, you're watching your opponent. You're watching for a month. And then you develop the game plan on how to beat that opponent. And then you transfer away from watching film of that opponent to thinking about your game plan, to doing everything in that moment to win that fight. And some fighters, for them, they might even need to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to work on the underhook on the wall today so that when I'm in a fight with such and such on that date, I will beat them. And that's the way they set their intention and start practice. And then, you know, you think about it. One of the tricks I always used was the night before a fight, you're doing hot baths, or the week of the fight, right? You're going to do some hot baths, some sauna stuff. I would sit in the hot baths, and I would never vocalize my fears and worries. I would never say them aloud. I would sit in the hot bath. I would think about I would let the negative thoughts come because they will. If you don't guard against them, they'll come. And I would say, you know, it's hot, it sucks. And then I would pop the drain, and I would watch all those negative thoughts. Try to visually watch the negative thoughts go down the drain. And then you take a cool, refreshing shower, and then you positively visualize. You see yourself walking out. You see your hands raised, you know. I thought it was so dumb. The coaches at the end of practice, run around with your hands up. You want, get in your head, you want. I thought it was so dumb at the time, but now I kind of get it more. And then, you know, the day of the fight, you're going to go through your routine. You know what a routine is? Routine makes the extraordinary ordinary, right? So you ever see the movie Hoosiers?
No, I haven't.
It's a great movie. I mean, you know, if you're into American college or high school basketball. But the concept is that no matter where you are, the octagon's 30 feet. The opponent, the matting, it doesn't change that much, right? So you're going to control for what you can. Maybe there's altitude, maybe there's not. But you want to control for what you can, and then you go in there, and it's the same sport. It's the same warm-up. So something I found later in my career was I had this big elongated warm-up that allowed me to get mentally in tuned, and it required more space than I would have on the actual event. So I was like, look, I'm going to have 2 squares of mat. I need to come up with a warm-up, pre-fight warm-up that we can do in 2 squares of mats because I can't just run around. I don't have 50 foot of mat like I do in my home gym when I warm up. And then, you know, you see fighters play the song before that hard sparring. Something I like to do early in my career is I would drive 2 hours to Atlanta and I would box at a boxing gym where I didn't know anybody, you know? And I literally think, man, if I get knocked out, is anybody even going to be nice enough to put me in my car? You know? but you get that fear, that away game fear. And a little bit of fear is good, you know? Instead of calling it fear, we'll call it arousal. You know what arousal does? It brings the best out of you. Remember, there's a couple types of stress, right? There's eustress and distress. Stress is good, man. Stress is why I got out of bed every day and worked my ass off because I assumed that my opponent was doing the same thing, you know? Stress is not a bad thing. Stress makes you react. It's just a signal, right? So you realize that that one, your heart rate rises, when your stomach shuts down and you get butterflies. That's because your body knows the deal. Your physiological, your snake brain, it knows what's up, man. It knows, you know what? I don't need blood in my stomach right now. I need that shit in my muscles. You know, why do you feel like all like weird? You feel in car accident speed, right? Like, now the key is to not let that happen. This is something I did wrong. Not let that happen all day fight day. Because then when you get to the fight, you are taxed. You've been working at that, you know, the whole time. So you get up, fight day, you do your warm up, you let those feelings come, and then you push them out, and then you go to your happy place with your friends. You know, I meet a lot of fighters. That's when the corner team becomes important, because you want to be sit there joking and blah, 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 and it doesn't happen. Like, you're not in the fight. You get to the arena. Hey, I'm still relaxed. Fight? Oh, there's a fight? No, it doesn't matter. Now, somebody told me, a psychologist I got to speak with told me that tactile was the thing. So what I would use now is the second you start getting your hands wrapped, that's when we're in the fight. That's when we switch on, as you know, Coach Cab says. Switch on. Hey, it's time. Now we're in the fight. Now, instead of trying to redirect our thoughts to whatever we're doing at this very moment, we can look forward to that fight, to the things we need to do, and we can, you know, yeah, it's stressful, and I'm going to go fight this person. And then you have to look at it like, don't look at it, hey, somebody's going to kick you in the head as hard as they can. No, you get to kick somebody in the head as hard as you want, man. You get to do that to somebody. You know, it's like the old, I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me, son.
Yeah.
You know, that's the mentality. You have to kind of start thinking that, oh, you know what, they're real good at this. They're real good at that. Hey, you know what, I'm real good at this too. And I'll bet, you know, in my head, I'd be like, yeah, third round, though. It's going to be they're going to be a little slower. I'm not. You know, so you have to find your psychological advantages and play them up, just like you're going to play them up in the actual competition.
Did you feel at any stage in your career, you just highlighted there that, you know, there was times in your career that maybe you didn't abide by that. Was there anything in particular that you know, in any of your losses that you felt, you know, was maybe a mindset thing?
Not specifically, you know.
Yeah,
I usually got outskilled, or, you know, didn't train properly for the event I was training for, you know.
You fought at heavyweight early in your career, and to my eye, you looked huge at light heavyweight. Did you cut a lot?
So, you know, I would bounce around. So I'm naturally a skinny kid, but I used to love lifting weights. And you know, I came up trying to play American football in college. And what do you do for that? I would eat 6,000 calories a day, every day. I would, you know, hit the weights 3-4 times a week, big time, you know. And it would depend, right? So I had a tough time because I actually broke my foot, but I could still like hit some mitts, but I couldn't do much road work, and I was lifting and hitting mitts. And as long as I didn't bounce my foot, I was all right, and I got up to like 245. But, you know, I felt great for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was actually a skinny kid that always ate his way up.
Well, just before we let you go, because we're approaching the time limit here, we always do quick-fire questions with our guests. So just a couple of quick-fire questions for you before we let you go about your day, Forrest. So,
bananas.
Well, there's no point in asking the first question then. Street Fighter, Tekken, or Mortal Kombat?
Mortal Kombat.
Fine choice. Van Damme or Schwarzenegger?
Schwarzenegger.
Pineapple on pizza, hell yes or hell no?
It's fine.
You're the only person that said that. Most, like, Curtis Blades.
I love it, yeah.
Yeah, he thought it was blasphemy.
I'll do it, but I don't love it. You know, it's like anal sex. I'll do it, but it's not.
Who was your toughest opponent?
Man, you know, it's so hard to say, right? I mean, my best was maybe Anderson Silva was probably my best opponent, but that wasn't actually a tough fight because I was never really there. Didn't even know what was going on. So, man, I don't know. You know, my hardest fights were Stefan, the first Shogun. One I gassed a lot in early that was really tough was, and I caught him some big shots and nothing happened, was, I forget his name. The heavyweight, he fought Tim Sylvia for the belt. Good jits guy, good wrestler. And bald head.
Mel
Lots
probably
of
knew that. Oh, Jeff Monson. Jeff Monson.
Yes.
Yeah, that was just one of those fights where you're like, all right, who's helping me to the locker room? I can't even believe this game is right now.
You won that by submission, didn't you?
No. I won by decision. In overtime.
Sorry.
It was magic. So they were like, all right, you know what? Close fight. We're gonna do an overtime rounds. And he poured down. Was like, no. Like, no, I had nothing.
If you could have,
oh,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, if you could have any dream fight, anyone from any era, any promotion, who would you pick?
Me, circa Vanderlei. Prime me, prime Vanderlei.
In Pride.
Yeah, man.
Pride rules.
I fought twice under that rule set, and maybe 3 times under that rule set, and I did get the cross-side knee to the head. I had my hand on the guy's face and I kneed him on the head, and his head flew like, and I was like, "Whoa, that's real." You have to be careful being people in the head, man.
If you could capture any superpower, what would you choose?
Any superpower? I'd be Wolverine. He's always my favorite. I want to recover because I'm so banged up. I just want to go back to I want to be healthy, man.
And just the last question.
Wolverine ain't getting COVID. His body will fight that shit.
Yeah.
In 5 years, Forrest Griffin will be
vice president at the UFC Performance Institute, trucking along, helping fighters get the most out of their careers, and helping the world of mixed martial arts to train in a more effective and scientific fashion.
Forrest Griffin, thank you very much for taking the time.
Yes, brilliant. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Final round. Fight!